In space, no one can hear you scream. When Ridley Scott's Alien hit theaters in 1979, audiences witnessed something different. The crew of the Nostromo faced the perfect organism with barely any weapons at all. Fire became their only real defense, and that choice turned this movie into one of the most terrifying films ever made. Alien came out on May 25, 1979, during a time when science fiction usually meant laser guns and high-tech weaponry. Star Wars had come out just 2 years earlier with blasters and lightsabers. Ridley Scott went the opposite direction. He created a survival horror story set on a commercial towing vessel, basically space truckers hauling ore back to Earth. The USCSS Nostromo carried 7 crew members, and when they woke up early from hypersleep to investigate a distress signal, they had 0 military equipment on board. This was intentional. The Weyland-Yutani Corporation sent regular workers, engineers, and pilots and navigators to do a job. Captain Dallas, Executive Officer Kane, Warrant Officer Ripley, Navigator Lambert, Science Officer Ash, and Engineers Parker and Brett were blue-collar employees. They wore work clothes, complained about pay, and dealt with a ship that looked like it had been in service for decades. Everything felt lived in, grimy, industrial. The weapons they ended up using reflected that same aesthetic. After the chestburster killed Kane and disappeared into the ship's ventilation system, the crew faced an immediate problem. How do you hunt something when you have nothing to hunt it with? Dallas made the call to use fire. His reasoning was simple and based on animal behavior. Most creatures retreat from flames. It made sense at the time. Parker, the chief engineer, got to work rigging up flamethrowers from whatever materials the Nostromo had on board. These devices became the primary weapon throughout the entire film. The movie calls them incinerator units in some of the technical documentation. According to the specs that production designer Roger Christian worked out, each flamethrower could fire ultra-thickened naphtha, basically a jellied fuel similar to napalm, up to 30 meters. The burst capacity lasted about 20 seconds. Each unit weighed 2.7 kilograms and measured 88 centimeters long. Parker constructed several of these, enough for the crew to carry during their hunt. Roger Christian built the actual props using found materials. He raided hobby shops and industrial supply stores around London. The base came from Hornby model railway piers, those little plastic supports for train set bridges. The fuel tanks were Fenzi buoyancy compensators, the kind scuba divers use. Christian added pipes and fittings that matched the detailing on the Nostromo miniature model, creating visual consistency across the whole production. The result looked completely believable as something a ship's engineer could assemble in 20 minutes from storage locker parts. The hero versions, the ones used in close-up shots, actually worked. They fired real propane through a pilot light system kept running by a battery-powered igniter. Special effects supervisor Nick Alder and his team had to be extremely careful filming these scenes. The sets were tight, enclosed spaces designed to create claustrophobia. Having open flames in those conditions created serious fire hazards. Behind-the-scenes footage shows Sigourney Weaver testing one of the functional units on the lawn at Shepperton Studios. She's in full costume, firing a real jet of flame across the grass while crew members stand way back. That commitment to practical effects gave the film a visceral quality that still holds up today. Dallas took a flamethrower into the air ducts first. The plan was to drive the alien toward an airlock where it could be blown into space. The crew coordinated through motion trackers and walkie-talkies. Lambert and Parker positioned themselves at different junction points while Dallas crawled through the narrow passages. The scene builds incredible tension. You can hear him breathing, see the flame illuminating the cramped metal corridors. The motion tracker starts pinging. Something's moving. The xenomorph comes from above and grabs him so fast he barely has time to scream. The flamethrower drops, and the pilot light stays burning in the empty duct. When they recover it later, there's no blood on it. Dallas vanished completely. This moment establishes something crucial. The flamethrowers might not actually work against this thing. The xenomorph moves too fast, attacks from unexpected angles, and shows no fear of fire whatsoever. Parker used his flamethrower during the confrontation with Ash. After Ripley discovered that their science officer was actually an android following secret orders from the company, Ash attacked her. Parker decapitated him with what looks like a fire extinguisher, and then they incinerate the remains. This is one of the few times fire actually destroys something in the film. The irony here is thick. Ash, the synthetic being, gets burned while the organic alien seems immune. Later, when Parker and Lambert are gathering supplies for the escape shuttle, they have flamethrowers with them. The alien corners them in the supply room. Parker drops his weapon deliberately to avoid hitting Lambert with the flame. That split-second decision costs both of them their lives. The flamethrower, which should have been their protection, becomes useless because of friendly fire concerns. Ripley arms herself with a flamethrower during her final escape attempt. After activating the ship's self-destruct sequence, she runs through the Nostromo corridors with the incinerator unit in hand. She fires it a couple times defensively, more to clear her path than to actually fight the alien. When she reaches the Narcissus shuttle and discovers the xenomorph has followed her, she doesn't even try using fire. Instead, she relies on the spacesuit, the harpoon gun, and the shuttle's thrusters. The flamethrower gets discarded. In the director's cut, there's an additional scene that makes the weapon even more disturbing. Ripley finds Dallas and Brett cocooned in a wall, being transformed into eggs. Dallas begs her to kill him. She uses the flamethrower to mercy kill both of them, then burns the entire area. This scene adds a whole new layer of horror. Fire doesn't save anyone. It becomes a tool for ending suffering. The cattle prods represent the crew's second attempt at weaponry. These electric shock devices show up when they're still trying to capture the alien rather than kill it. The idea was to treat it like a dangerous animal that could be controlled and contained. Brett carries one when he goes looking for Jones, the ship's cat, in the landing bay. The cattle prod proves completely worthless. The xenomorph drops from the chains above and takes him before he can even raise the weapon. These devices were based on real livestock handling equipment from the 1970s. The props used modified industrial components to create that same utilitarian look. Everything the crew uses feels like repurposed tools because that's exactly what they are. A commercial vessel wouldn't stock military weapons. They'd have equipment for managing cargo, handling emergencies, and maintaining the ship. The cattle prods might have been intended for herding livestock in the cargo holds during other runs. Using them against the alien shows just how desperate and unprepared the crew really is. Parker's improvised weapons tell a similar story. After things fall apart, he starts grabbing whatever he can find. Wrenches, tools, anything heavy enough to use as a club. These scenes emphasize the film's commitment to realism. When you're stuck on a ship with a monster and no real weapons, you use what's available. The environment itself becomes another defensive option. The crew discusses using the ship's coolant system to freeze the alien. They talk about sealing sections and depressurizing them. Every option is essentially a trap or a hazard rather than a direct weapon. The airlock strategy that Dallas originally planned relied on the vacuum of space doing the work human ingenuity, trying to compensate for a complete lack of firepower. The Nostromo's self-destruct system ends up being the ultimate weapon. When Ripley realizes the alien can't be killed with what they have, she decides to destroy everything. The sequence shows her activating the ship's nuclear detonation system through the mother computer interface. The countdown gives her 10 minutes to reach the shuttle. This decision carries enormous thematic weight. She's willing to annihilate a vessel worth millions, an entire payload of ore, and herself if necessary, just to ensure this creature doesn't reach Earth. The self-destruct represents the only weapon powerful enough to guarantee the xenomorph's death. Of course, she manages to cancel it and escape, which sets up the real final confrontation. The Narcissus shuttle becomes Ripley's survival tool and her final weapon all at once. After discovering the alien inside with her, she uses the spacesuit for protection, the harpoon gun to pin it in the doorway, and the shuttle's thruster exhaust to blast it into space. The vacuum does what fire couldn't. This ending reinforces one of the film's core themes. Intelligence and adaptability beat raw firepower every time Ripley survives by thinking, planning, and using every resource available rather than trying to shoot her way out. The complete absence of conventional firearms in Alien was a deliberate production design choice. In 1979, most science fiction included guns, blasters, pulse rifles, laser pistols, you name it. Ridley Scott and the writers wanted something different. The Nostromo is a commercial vehicle owned by a corporation focused entirely on profit. Arming the crew would cost money and serve no real purpose for a towing ship. The company's priorities were clear. Get the ore back to Earth as cheaply as possible. When Special Order 937 directed Ash to bring back the alien specimen, Crew Expendable, it revealed just how little Weyland-Yutani valued their employees. Weapons would have complicated that mission. If the crew could effectively fight the xenomorph, they might destroy the specimen the company wanted so badly. The calculated risk of sending them unarmed wasn't a mistake. It was policy. This vulnerability created the film's horror. When you watch Dallas crawling through the air ducts with just a flamethrower and a motion tracker, the tension comes from knowing he's completely outmatched. The alien is faster, stronger, and designed to kill. The crew has to rely on makeshift weapons and desperate plans. That imbalance makes every encounter terrifying. It also set up the dramatic shift for the sequel. James Cameron's Aliens went full military action, giving the Colonial Marines pulse rifles, smart guns, grenade launchers, and all the firepower the original crew lacked. The contrast makes both films work better. Alien shows the horror of being defenseless. Aliens shows that even overwhelming firepower might not be enough. The production of these props involved serious safety concerns. Nick Alder's special effects team had to choreograph every flame effect carefully. The actors received training on how to handle the functional flamethrowers, when to ignite them, how to aim safely. Sigourney Weaver's test firing wasn't just for fun. She needed to understand the weight, the heat, the way the propane flame behaved. Multiple versions of each prop existed. Hero units for close-ups that actually worked, stunt versions that could be dropped or thrown without breaking. Non-firing dummy versions for scenes where actors just needed to carry them. This level of practical prop work required significant time and budget. The film's total cost ran between $8.4 and $11 million. Modest even for 1979, Roger Christian's ability to create believable weapons from model kits and scuba gear kept costs down while maintaining the used future aesthetic that defined the film. One detail most people miss involves the background equipment visible on the Nostromo. If you look carefully at the corridor walls during certain scenes, there's safety gear and tools that imply what the ship would normally carry: fire extinguishers, emergency equipment, repair tools. The flamethrowers Parker builds would have used components from these systems. The film's commitment to world building extended to elements that never get mentioned in dialogue. Ron Cobb's concept art included detailed technical drawings for equipment that appears for just seconds on screen. This attention to detail helped make the Nostromo feel like a real working vessel rather than a movie set. The flamethrowers influenced the entire franchise that followed. When Aliens introduced the M240 incinerator unit in 1986, it was a direct evolution of the original design. The pulse rifles had underslung flamethrowers. Fire remained a consistent weapon against xenomorphs across multiple films. Prometheus brought back the flamethrower concept. Even Alien, Romulus in 2024, featured fire-based weapons as callbacks to the original. This consistency helped build franchise identity while honoring Ridley Scott's initial vision. Fire in Alien symbolizes humanity's oldest weapon turned against its most perfect predator. The xenomorph represents cold biomechanical evolution, while flame represents hot, chaotic human desperation. That contrast runs through the entire film, the industrial aesthetic of the Nostromo, all rivets and steam and oil, clashes with the organic, almost sexual design of the alien and its eggs. H.R. Geiger's biomechanical art created a creature that blurred the line between machine and organism. Using primitive fire against such a perfect being highlights human vulnerability. The flamethrowers become symbols of false security. They look dangerous, they sound powerful, they create impressive visual effects, but against the xenomorph, they're almost worthless. The film explores corporate negligence through the absence of proper weapons. Weyland-Yutani sent these people into space with minimal protection because protecting them wasn't profitable. The crew's resourcefulness in building flamethrowers shows human ingenuity under pressure. Parker's engineering skills, Dallas's tactical thinking, Ripley's adaptability, these qualities matter more than firepower. The movie argues that intelligence and determination can overcome superior force. Ripley survives because she thinks her way through problems, makes hard choices, and refuses to give up even when everything seems hopeless. That theme resonates across the entire franchise and helped make her one of cinema's most iconic characters. Alien's approach to weapons changed science fiction horror forever. Films like The Thing and Event Horizon followed its example of vulnerable protagonists with limited resources. Video games from Metroid to Dead Space borrowed the isolated with minimal weapons concept. The influence extends beyond direct copies into a whole philosophy of horror game design. Give players just enough tools to feel like they might survive while ensuring they're always outmatched. That balance creates sustained tension. Alien proved you could make a terrifying film about fighting a monster by giving your heroes almost nothing to fight with. The flamethrowers, improvised and ultimately ineffective, became more memorable than a whole arsenal of laser guns would have been. Inside Ridley Scott's masterpiece, firepower meant desperation. The crew of the Nostromo faced the perfect organism with the most basic human weapon imaginable. Those flamethrowers, built from spare parts in 20 minutes, represent everything that makes Alien work. They're realistic, they're visceral, and they're completely inadequate. That's what makes the film so terrifying. Don't forget to hit subscribe and give us a like if you'd like to support our channel. See you in the next videos.